18th. We will reconvene. We'll reconvene and take a motion, please, to come out of recess. Continue the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to come out of recess and begin the Board of Finance budget meetings.
All right. Is there a second by Scott, I see?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of recess. Not sure that's really necessary, but might as well. And as noted, the first item on the agenda for department as part of the public hearing is the police department. So welcome, Chief Mello.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Seems like you were just here, or we were all just here.
Yeah.
So you know the drill. If you'd like to present any information to the board, you're welcome to. Otherwise, we can start asking questions.
You know, I'll start with your questions. Well, I'll just say this, that when you look through the budget, the increases for the most part were contractual increases. There was some increases in overtime to reflect a potential wage increase. There's some fixed costs on communications on page 44. Those are fixed costs of Motorola. Just to remind everyone that we maintain the radio system for police and fire. And then on page 45, you'll see some fixed costs in software and maintenance. And those are maintenance agreements that go up every year. And again, those are fixed costs. Cars went up again this year. There's an increase on the drone account. And we've also cut back on some of the modems and cut back on one car this year. And that's really just to kind of summarize. Otherwise, the budget remains basically the same.
Thank you, Chief. I'll open up the floor to any members of the board who would like to inquire.
Hi, Chief.
Through you, Mr. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. You want to go, right?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay. First of all, thank you for all you do in Milford. And just a few quick questions on the overtime. It looks like park, special ops, and off-road are some of those new, or did we just not expense anything last year?
No, those were new. We
Okay.
just didn't spend it. So what we try to do with overtime, if we don't need it, we don't use it.
Okay.
So they were budgeted at the same rate, except Operation Off-Road was 6,000. This year it's 6,150, but we did not spend that money. We didn't see a need for it.
What is COPSS?
That's the cops unit. It's the community oriented policing substation. It's the van
Okay.
down in Milford Center around bar closing. It's the van that we put down at the beaches. It brings a whole set of resources down there where folks can come in and meet with officers. We also, there's also a few bike patrols that accompany that. It's to let people know that we're in the area, so we try to have some high visibility.
Yeah, that's the fun one. I've seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Chief, thank you again for all that you do.
Thank you, Scott.
Just a couple of quick questions, and you kind of hit on some of them when you were introducing the budget a moment ago. But when you see overtime regular has a little bit of a jump compared to 23-24, slight increase from last year. I remember, I think it was last year you mentioned if there's if we don't have enough officers on duty, the ones that are there, you end up having to pay overtime. Is that a similar story this year, or do you feel that you're closer to capacity, or do you feel like you're under capacity right now?
So that's a good question. So the increase is about 2.2% from the previous year. When we can project overtime with some based upon the earlier years, based upon the number of openings, but what we can't project is how many officers are going to take it in compensation time and act time, which means they'll use it for time off instead of for pay. The liability's still there. But to answer your question, we were July 1st last year, we were at full capacity, which is really tough, unusual in today's climate. We have 9 openings now since July 1st.
Wow.
We just went through a recruitment and hiring process. We went through 89 applicants, which is hundreds and hundreds of less applicants than we would have pre-COVID. And we were only able to hire 7. So we will have those 9 openings until 7 recruits graduate in July. And then in July, they'll go through 3 months of FTO, field training. So we'll have 7 openings that we have to hire for, at least at the 60% rate, likely higher because the summer months are busy for us until probably September, October. We anticipate another 3 to 4 openings between July 1st and November 1st. We're seeing officers leave. Some are leaving law enforcement altogether. Most are retiring right around their 20-year mark or so to take their pension and go into second careers. But we're also seeing people leave law enforcement for a variety of reasons. Some of it is they're just not working out, and so there's kind of a mutual agreement that maybe this isn't for you. We're not seeing the kind of recruits we used to see when Jeffrey worked for us, where people were very committed to Milford and very committed to law enforcement. It's just the interest just isn't there post 2020. And this is a nationwide problem. It's certainly a statewide problem. And it's getting really difficult to compete for a very small group of interested candidates. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's unfortunate.
No. Yeah. And I mean, it echoes what you've said the last couple of years from what I recall. So seems like a continuing trend, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunately.
Jumping a little further in, talking about software and maintenance, the uptick in software maintenance, is that predominantly due to body cams and the storage that's required for the footage, or is that something different?
Actually, that's something different. In fact, next year you'll see a significant increase in the cost of body cam and dash cam because while in the past 4 years ago, it was spread out over 5 years. So you would see that large number from Axon, evidence.com, you'd see it every year. Mayor Blake 4 years ago used ARPA money to pay it in one lump sum. That's going to be due in the next budget. In fact, we're waiting for a quote, and it's going to be substantial. But the software and maintenance reflects the dozens of contracts that we have for different software systems and different services. As law enforcement gets more complex, and we start to use we see a greater use of technology. There's a maintenance fee, and those continue to go up. Most people are aware of the CAD, community dispatch, the records management system, the jail management system. But there are a number of systems that make up that 467,000, and it was a significant increase. It was 57,000 that went up from last year because we've added some new systems.
Yeah, that's what I was driving at. Does that relate at all to the uptick in drones?
It doesn't. That's all. This year, when we went up from 40,000 to 105,000. That skipping over to page 46. That drone, law enforcement drones are different. They're more sophisticated. They have more sophisticated optics, so they can see, from a further distance and with great clarity. They have night vision. They have thermal imaging. So when you're doing search and rescue, you can see through foliage, or you're looking for a suspect, you can see when they're hiding under or near something. But what's happening with drones, and because they're so widespread now in law enforcement, is they come with a set of software tools, and that's kind of built right into the whole program. And so while you're seeing these drones cost more, you're also paying for software that allows for collision avoidance. It allows for map overlays. It allows for autonomous flight beyond visual line of sight with certain waivers from the FAA. They're more productive, they're safer, especially when you're flying at night. So if you can think of a drone flying on autopilot as opposed to somebody standing there, trying to maneuver it often into a tree or something. So the software that software for the drone is included in the price of the drone, not in this software maintenance.
Gotcha. Okay. And sticking with the drones, is that like, are we going to a net higher amount of drones that the police department has access to? Or is this just like, hey, we had 3 drones, and I'm just making up the number, and we're basically upgrading them because the technology is really come a long way in the last few years?
So we have a drone, and 3 drones is exactly what we have. We have a drone that is used, a small drone that we use when we enter a house. If we have a barricaded person, and often what we get is somebody doesn't want to come out. We don't know if they're armed with a weapon. And if we do know they're armed with a weapon, we don't know if they're still in the home, still alive. And in the past, we would go in and we would try to send a robot in. Now we send a small drone in, and it's different because it can bounce off walls and it can break glass to get through windows, can do a couple things. And so we have another drone that unfortunately just crashed, very similar to what this drone is. And this is a drone that is more sophisticated, with better optics and increased range and increased flight time. So the answer to your question is, yeah, we do have 3. This would be the 3rd, and it is more advanced technology.
Gotcha. Last question I had was on police cruisers, $440,000. How many cruisers does that acquire and equip?
Well, it doesn't equip, it only pays for 5. And Jeffrey will remember when he was there, when I became chief, we used to get 12 to 15 cars a year. 12 at a minimum in the budget, and then 2 to 3, depending on what year it was, in admin cars and specialty cars. We haven't put an admin car or specialty cars in the budget in many, many years. And so we're down to 5 cars, and because the cars keep going up in price. And so, but they're also lasting longer, fortunately. And so what we did this year, originally I put in for 6 cars. And in talking with the mayor, we do have some surplus money left in the private duty car account, which is what, when we see surpluses, we'll buy a detective car or a specialty car. And so we're not going to do that this year. We're going to buy 1 cruiser out of that account, and then 5 out of this account to make 6, which is really where we want to be.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks again.
Well, my only question really is regarding you are requesting 1 additional police officer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was part of the agreement of the 4 officers. This would be the last year of that agreement.
Well, you read my mind, yeah, because I was looking back at the 2022 book with the 4 officers. So this is, you think this would bring you up at least on paper to the force level that you think is appropriate?
I do. I think that this 4 was what we had asked for in 2020. It puts us right where we need to be. And this is the last time you'll see that, at least in the short term.
Thank you.
Chief, how are you?
Sure. How are you, Jeff?
Good, thank you. You mentioned before, I think it was Ray or Scott, someone asked, I think it was Scott, Mayor Blake paid for the body cams out of what account? You referenced the
ARPA money. It was federal funds that went across the nation. Milford had a pretty good, their share, and there were a number of things that were paid for. And I think it was $1.5 million for a 5-year worth of Evans.com, right around there. And he paid for the entire amount out of ARPA fund instead of taking out of taxpayer dollars. That's going to be returning. I would anticipate more than $1.5 million when I've looked at what other agencies are paying.
And then the force level that Scott had just, or Brian had just mentioned, what do our numbers now look like? What's the number your goal, or what do you set to?
120 would be, with this hire in July, that'll put us at 120.
And then my last question goes back to attracting quality police officers, such as myself back in the day. No, does pay have anything to do with that? Do you think you could attract better officers with better pay, or do you think you're comparable? And
No, I think pay has a lot to do with that. And we've got some strong data to support that. Years ago, when Milford took 2 zeros and got behind most everyone, we people still just wanted to come to an agency because they wanted to work in an agency, whether it be the culture or for whatever reason. We don't see that with young people today. What we see is they look for agencies that have a schedule that offers a lot of time off, like a 4-2 or 5-3. We don't have that. And they're looking at those departments that pay a higher wage have been more successful in recruiting people and more successful in getting people to leave one agency of a lower paying agency and go to a higher paying agency. We think, they're getting probably the higher quality recruits in terms of testing scores. And when we talk to recruits in the academy from various departments, that's what they tell us. And especially when you're looking at from years 2 to 9, we just lost an officer. She was excellent. She was an SRO. She'd been here 6 years, and she came in and she said, I really want to stay, but I have to leave because I'm making $75,000 and I can go make $95,000 somewhere else. And it was just too much. It was too much, and as you probably know, Jeff, it now takes 10 years to get up to top grade, where most agencies takes 4 to 5. And we have to do something, because, we couldn't, for the first time ever, put 9 police officers in our own academy. We could only get 7. And we didn't decide on that 5th, 6th, or 7th person until about 24 hours before the academy started. So yeah, it is something needs to change. And we also know that departments are doing wage increases. And you can just Google that and look at, and I can give you North Haven and New Haven, and Cheshire, and on and on and on. They're doing these wage adjustments to bump police officers up for a competitive wage so they can compete. So I can give you the data, or you can just, you can look at the public record and you can, hear others talk about what they're doing to try to address the problem and the success that we're having.
Chief, would you say that if you compare our pay scale to neighboring communities, and you could say neighboring, maybe draw a 20-mile radius, are we below average, at average? What's your estimate?
So a couple things on that. Connecticut's small and we compete throughout the whole state. So it isn't like it used to be where you can just say, we're just going to compete in this geographical area. So the net is wide. And I answer it 2 ways. When a recruit starts the academy, the wages for that first year is comparable. It's an average wage. And it's when you get away from that first year and you get in that second year to 9th year, it's considerably lower. For instance, Milford's top grade for a police officer is 87,000 for a patrol officer. That's average, and we've done the data. It's a little bit below average depending on what region you're looking at. But let's say it's average. It's probably about $4,000 below. But let's just assume it's average for a second. But it takes most departments, it takes you 4 years or 5 years to get there. Milford, it takes you 10 years to get there. So at that 4th year mark, if you have a department that's on average that's making 87,000, at 4 years you're making about 75,000, and that's a lot of money. A $10,000-$12,000 difference. And now you're seeing agencies that are doing these wage adjustments that are paying considerably more. I think, excuse me, We have to look at some wage adjustments that can get us there. I don't think it's, and do some compression of these steps, maybe eliminate some steps. So I think there's a way to get there. But we are still in a current working agreement. Which expires in July. And I think at that time we have to take a close look at what others in our business are doing and how do we get competitive. But we're stuck with the contract we have right now. So
Understood. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Anything further from the board?
No.
Okay. Done by 6 o'clock, a record.
I know I want to watch the con at 7. So as long as you finish by 7, we were in good shape. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Good to see you. Be well.
Thanks, Chief.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay, page 59, animal control.
Good evening. My name is Scott Ellingson. I'm the head of animal control. Very briefly, I'm not asking for a lot. There's only 2 things that I'm requesting that is new, and $5,000 in rabies control due to the increase in vet costs, and $1,000 in electricity. Everything else, for example, has just moving money around. For example, other med fees and services, I'm transferring $2,000 from cell phones into that. Also to help with vet costs, public awards going into animal handling equipment, and regarding overtime, we can still use orange money for that. So, any questions? Pardon? Hello?
I'm sorry, if you're not speaking, please mute your microphone.
So just to refresh our memory, and I think you answered the question because that was going to be my question on overtime. So the delta between 10,000 and what was budgeted for last year and the request of 32,000, that difference will be covered by Town of Orange. Did I hear you right?
Yes.
And you got 4 positions listed, or do you have 4 employed?
The clerk has just left on February 7th was his last day. Other than that, I have 3. The 3 others are still employed.
You plan to hire a replacement for clerk A?
It is going internally right now, up until Friday. Then after that, they're going to go through a list of candidates.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
All right. Thank you for your time. If there's
Thank
nothing
you.
further, thank you. Have a good evening. If there's nothing further for animal control, we'll move on to Human Resources Department, page 41.
Good evening.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So overall my budget is flat. There was a total increase of about of $2,500 in 3 specific line items. We increased under miscellaneous professional service fees. I requested $1,200 to bridge the gap for a new employee assistance program. An EAP program is just much more robust for our employees. It provides a lot more services, and we were paying for a service with the other company and never really got any utilization reporting, and it wasn't very user friendly for our employees. So we switched, and so that's to bridge that gap. There was a $300 increase for postage. We do a lot of mailings out of my office for retirees, as well as for active employees that are required to be done at least on an annual basis. So that was to account for that. And the last line item was an increase in office supplies. Again, between the mailings, the other piece is record retention, and we have secured a shredding company with our applications and so forth. We have to maintain those for number of years, but when it's time to get rid of them, we have to shred them. So that's to account for the services of a professional shredding company. And that's all I have that changed within my budget.
And thank you for that presentation. Any questions from the board?
And Tanya, your department, you have 4 people. All 4 people are
Yes, we
there.
have obviously myself. There's a HR generalist that supports me and handles all of the recruitment, FMLA, and a lot of activity with active employees. Then we have a benefits and pension coordinator who handles all of the employees who are about to retire, and all of the administration with that, and the retirees as well, and handles all the benefits for the retirees. My generalist does all the benefits for active employees. And then we have an HR assistant, which is a clerical admin position that supports all 3 of us. And we have about 500 active employees, including police and fire, obviously, and we have almost 980 retirees that we support.
That's it.
That's it.
I'm sorry, how many retirees did you say?
For 980. We also support retirees from the Board of Education. There's a few group of members that are part of our pension plan. So we administer that, and then they become our retirees. Those are the folks in food service, secretarial, and maintenance.
Thank you.
Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Jeff.
How is the HR department staffing level compared to other municipalities?
I think we are on par, on average, for the size of the personnel that we have in general. I have tried to automate a lot of things since I've been on board over the last 11 years, including implementing an HRS system and so forth. So that definitely supports. We try to leverage by utilizing technology as well. But I think that we're busy. You know, I always say we're a small and mighty department. We're always busy. But I think that it's adequately staffed. I do have in my budget, which we've had now for a couple of years, we do bring a summer intern to support our office and activities that happen during the summer, but also a way to support young people coming into the HR field, just giving them an opportunity to be exposed as well, especially in the public sector.
Thank you.
Hey, Tanya, just out of curiosity, how many city employees do we actually have?
We have 500 right now.
Okay.
When I started, we had 525, but obviously that budgeted, I believe maybe we have a little bit, maybe around 515 or so, or 525, but we have vacancies.
Right. Thanks.
And you said 980 retirees
Mm-hmm.
or 908? 980?
980.
Wow.
And again, I want to clarify that a little bit. That includes, obviously, when we have retirees who pass on and we have contingent annuitants, those are all factored into that one number, so that they're grouped there as well.
Survivorship benefits and so forth.
Exactly.
To that. Okay, thank you.
Anything further from the board? All right.
Well, thank you very
Tanya.
much. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you for your time. Moving on to Harbor Management Commission, page 107, 109. 107 through 111, I believe.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Nice to see you all again. I'll start off real quick, just kind of give you an update on where we're at in the last season. We saw increased growth across all of our revenue categories again. The Milford Harbor mooring field, Housatonic River mooring field were both completely full. Our dinghy and kayak storage at the boat ramp was also full. Once again, we hosted numerous events down at the marina over the course of the season, and the transient marina was full for many weekends. Right now, we're in the process of all of our renewals for mooring fields and storage and everything for the season, and we're accepting reservations for transient marina spaces for this upcoming season. So it's all rolling right along. Our budget is pretty similar to last year, just with a few operational costs that increased. But if there are any questions on the budget or on the harbor, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hey, Jim, Scott Moulton, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you, Scott?
Great. So we're full, like you said, with regards to, we're at capacity as far as space that we can rent out. Is there an opportunity? Because I feel like we've been at capacity the last couple of years, and I think the harbor has a phenomenal reputation in the boating community in and around Milford and the Long Island Sound. Is there an opportunity to up our fees? And I don't want to be the bad guy by asking that question, but it seems to me if we have a high demand, why not charge a little bit more?
So the fees for all of that are set by the Harbor Management Commission, and there have been year-to-year increases. Those are looked at each year and adjusted accordingly. So there was a slight increase this year, as there has been the last several years. And then as far as space goes, 2 seasons ago, we more than doubled the amount of dinghy and kayak storage capacity we have. We built all new racks. We are limited in moorings. We just don't have enough space. That's all we can do there. But it is possible that we may be able to increase further some of our dinghy and kayak storage space and add more racks there. It was a little... Right now, the waiting list for a mooring in Milford Harbor has been averaging between about 30 and 50 names on the list at a time. We go through every year, there's some attrition, we reassign moorings. That list at times has gotten as low as 25 or so. It maxes out at about 50. But 5 years ago, when I started, we went into the season with almost 20 open moorings, and it had been that way for a few years. So we've done a good job filling everything up. There may be some room, though, to add a little bit more space here and there.
Got it. Thank you. Great job.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Yes, Rick.
Hi, Jim. Ray Arnold.
Good evening.
I'm just wondering, what are general charges?
General charges?
Yeah.
Summary of expenditures.
It's like the second from the bottom on page 107. I mean, it seems pretty consistent.
So if I may interrupt, Mr. Chairman, and speak to this question to Ray. This refers to, if you go to the expenditure side of the budget, page 110.
Okay.
And if you look at the category right in the middle of the page, general charges, those are the contributions from the Marina Fund into the general fund to help pay for property and casualty insurance,
Okay.
flood insurance, as well as contribution to the workers' compensation fund for workers' compensation expenses. So
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
that is consistent every year, and it refers to those 3 line items.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi, Jim, Jeff Matchett, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good. It's not so much a question, but more of a compliment. I had the opportunity to rent that pavilion space for a graduation party. And your staff was great. The facility was great. Everything about it. And I can't say enough about an untapped resource there that people really should be utilizing. And it's just great, so
Thank you.
up to good
Thank
work.
you for that input. And it's a fabulous space,
Yeah.
the location and the amount of use that that's gotten has been amazing, from different community groups coming down and using it. It helps during all of the events, and then also for functions like yours. It's a tremendous asset to the city.
Yeah. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, agreed. Anything further? All right, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Okay, move on to Finance Department, page 37.
Good evening to all. This is Peter Eridisi, Finance Director. And I'd just like to open by once again thanking all the members of the Finance Department, all the various divisions, for their hard work during the course of the year. We're another department that is busy January through December. There's really not a slow time for us. We go from one cycle to the next, and we're always dealing with the various issues and challenges that the city has, trying to help the departments with their, not just their financial issues, but other types of issues that connect with the finance department. Payroll, purchasing, etc. I would like to commend the assessor's office. They recently completed the grand list for 10/1/24, and Marcus Eric is here tonight at the meeting, and I'd like to commend him and his team because they worked very hard to get the grand list done. They do every year to get it done on time. And that's a theme that I have for all of my divisions. We have a big task that we have to fulfill throughout the different periods of the year, not just the audit, but other types of reporting, collections, payroll related, IRS, etc. And I'm always proud of the dedication and focus of our finance department employees in getting the job done. And often they do it with a lot of focus and really motivation to do a great job for the city. So it's a privilege and an honor to work with them, and they're a great group of professionals. I would open it up to questions, but before I do that, I do want to raise heads up for a technical correction and plant a seed for that meeting down the road. We do have a need in the assessor's budget to ask for additional funding for an appraisal that's needed. And I'd like to turn it over to Marcus Eric just to give you a brief summary of the approximate dollar amount that is needed to increase the budget. I believe it would go toward the revaluation operations line item. And so I'll turn it over to Marcus to give you that summary. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the kind words, Peter. It's a pleasure to work with you as well. So, as most of you probably are aware, we've had a pilot program with Milford Power Company over the last 20 years, 2 10-year separate pilot. One was renegotiated in 2015 and has expired as of October 1st of 2024. Unfortunately, Milford Power and their representatives do not have the desire to renegotiate and extend this pilot another 5 years or any interest whatsoever. I've been working closely with Matthew Woods and Jonathan Bertram to move this forward since last May. Unfortunately, it's fallen on deaf ears, and they are showing no interest in renegotiating a pilot and want to go the typical tax route and get valued on the personal property side of their business as well as the real estate side of the business. This is something that most assessors, and including myself, this is a very specialized area. I have reached out to a few appraisal companies that specialize in this, and I'm in talks with one. They're out of New Jersey. The cost, it's a two-stage appraisal. And just to circle back, following my discussions with Matthew and Jonathan, we've all agreed this should happen. This is something that really we need to, so we can put a fair and honest opinion of value on both the real estate and, more importantly, the personal property. So an appraisal is warranted and needed in this case. The cost of there's two phases to an appraisal. The first phase is we get a number, and we get justification of that number and how the appraisal came, how the appraiser came to that number. The second phase is when they really get into the nuts and bolts of it and creates its appraisal for litigation purposes. Now, it's undetermined if we need to go to litigation yet. So the first phase is the part that I really want to get to, that we need to, and the cost is $25,000. If we need to go to litigation, phase 2 would be an additional $15,000 for a total cost of about $40,000. Now, currently, I have this funds in my revaluation budget, but as most of you probably know, we just started our revaluation for the 10/1/2025 grant list. So the bills from the appraisal company, Vision Appraisal, will be starting to flow in. So that's why I'm requesting additional funds into this line item for the appraisal of Milford Power.
Well, thank you, Marcus. I see city attorney's here. I don't know if he has anything to add, but if not, approximately what is the annual tax payment under the pilot currently?
Under the current pilot, which expired, we got our last payment in January of $2,350,000. So they were paying that twice a year for a total of $4.7 million.
Okay. It's a lot of money. So for 50,000 plus or minus, we need to determine a value for a taxpayer that pays over $2 million a year in taxes. So, I mean, I don't really see it. It's really not an option.
Correct.
If it needs to be done, it needs to be done.
I agree.
So what do we, and I know this will come through in the updated sheet, as Peter mentioned earlier, from technical analysis, but we need to increase the revaluation operations from 50,000 to what number?
To 90,000.
90, okay.
And the timing of this, just to circle back as well, the timing of this is really kind of unusual, because what happened when Office of Policy of Management realigned the revaluation schedules. So you might remember last year, and I wasn't present at this meeting, but Peter and I discussed this. We literally lost 1 year of funds for the revaluation budget, because this year we're on a 4-year cycle rather than a 5-year cycle. So last revaluation is 2021. The normal revaluation cycle would have put us with a reval at 2026. OPM realigned the revaluations to centralize them more and assist revaluation companies so they're not spread out all over the state. because they're limited on employees as well. So unfortunately, the result was Milford and about 6 or 7, I think it was seven towns total, lost 1 year of their cycle.
What is that in dollars estimate?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that question.
What do you think we lost by not doing their revaluation, by losing that year in dollars?
You mean in like in assessment dollars?
Yes.
That's very difficult to answer. I wouldn't know, because we would do one right now. The market, obviously, everyone knows, is just continues to go up and has yet to stabilize. So forecasting what it would be like next year, is it going to tank, or is it continue to rise, or is it going to finally level off and correct itself? I just can't answer that question.
Okay.
But my point was, we lost a year in asking you for funds to go into that revaluation program.
In other words, we have a sinking fund in the budget every year that goes into the revaluation. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, well, thank you for that presentation. I would expect that, Peter, you can go ahead and add that to your technical correction. I don't hear any objections from the board.
Okay. Thank you. I think that'll benefit the city in the future, and hopefully for many years.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Anything further from the board or from Peter on the finance department?
Peter, it's Scott. How you doing with, you have 27 budgeted positions. Do we have all 27 filled right now? You feeling good about that?
I'm deeply grateful that at the moment we are filled. That has not always been the case year after year. We've always had to deal with a vacancy or multiple vacancies, but at this present time, we are fully staffed, and I hope it stays that way for a while. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, if there's nothing further for finance, we'll move on to MIS. I believe page 39.
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thanks. Adam Heller, IT manager. If you'd like, I can start talking about some of the changes in the budget this year. The budget for our department overall has increased, and that's due to 3 specific lines in the budget, other than contractual salary changes. A couple of lines of cell phones and computers went up because we absorbed a budget from DPLU. Some of you may recall several years ago, these lines were all separated into different departments, and we consolidated them. There's still a few out there that are still within those departments, and we're slowly consolidating those budgets into this department. The computer budget also, there was an increase in costs for some equipment. We buy all of the iPads for the fire department. We buy all the computers used by the city, all the printers, all the monitors, everything used comes out of that line. So that's why that went up as well. And cell phones went up a little bit as well because of that absorption of cell phones from the DPLU department. The biggest increase is in the software and maintenance line. A lot of that is due to, there's a significant increase in our annual cost for all the software that we support. Other than a few isolated systems like with the police department and some in the fire, we manage and support all software applications throughout the city. So there's a pretty significant increase this year. The few vendors that give me a projection had about a 15% increase in those costs for maintaining those software packages. But the biggest increase is Office 365. That is our productivity tool that does our email, our file storage, our collaboration, manages all of that. And we first acquired last year, so it's a 3-year cycle for renewing the contract. 3 years ago, Mayor Blake used, it was referenced earlier, ARPA funds, which are the federal funds, to cover the cost of that. We paid 3 years up front. Unfortunately, those funds are exhausted, and now we need to move those funds to the operating budget. So that's close to a $300,000 a year cost that we now have to look for in the operating budget, and that's really what accounts for the biggest increase in this line is that one cost. So,
Thank you.
Sure.
Good information. Any questions from the board?
Just a quick question there. The other increase that I saw here was regular wages. Are we adding people in this department, or what was the jump in regular wages attributable to?
I think at the mayor request level, the only change is contractual. I had requested some changes, but I think we're gonna just wait a year and see if we can move that. So at the department level, I did add some positions to the budget, which would be on page 40. But we're going to postpone those changes for another year.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, just for my own, what's the difference between an IT director and an IT manager? Well, essentially, would one be an administrative position of some sort?
No, it's really because of the changes in technology in the city over the last few years, there's a need for different roles and functions. The IT director is really the strategic planner and manager of the overall infrastructure of the city, ensuring that the applications are enterprise-wide, breaking down the silos, working with departments to meet their needs, things like that. IT manager, which is what I'm in right now, would be reclassified into more of an operations supervisor, overseeing the day-to-day running of the department with the director's supervision. So that's really the difference. Is the director is the overall person, while the manager is just day-to-day overseeing the help desk, making sure problems are getting solved, that kind of thing.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Anything further from the board? Okay. Thank you, Adam. Have a good
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks.
Mayor's office, page 17.
Oh boy, here we go.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Get the
Good
knives
evening.
out.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. How are you tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. It's great to be here, and thank you and to all the members of the board. Thank you for the role that you play on the Board of Finance. You truly represent the citizens of Milford, and I want to thank you all for your commitment to the city. My budget is relatively small and it remains flat. I'm happy to answer any questions for my mayor's office department at this time.
I have none. Any questions from the board?
This is easy. I made sure it was flat. That's my job.
No
Keep
chairs
everything-
in this one?
No chairs.
Okay, good.
No chairs. But I'm here to answer any questions, moving forward. But thank you. And if that's it, you all have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for putting this budget together and starting the process.
All
Okay.
right. My pleasure. Thank you.
General expenses, page 19. There's nothing for general expenses. Golf course, page 112.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dan. How are you tonight?
Great, thank you. How is everybody?
Good. Better than my golf game.
Well, with this weather, we may have to wait a little while. Real quick, I'll just give you a quick update on what's going on at the Orchard Golf Course. Last year was a fantastic year. We had the most rounds ever in probably 20 years. We had close to 40,000 rounds, which is great for a 9-hole golf course. Our electric cart use was up. Our push and pull carts were up. The course is in great shape right now. Awaiting better weather to open up. Just some items on my budget. The course was opened in 1997. Okay, so this is the 28th year. And we have to maintain it. So if you notice my budget, it's the golf course budget, went up from last year. That is due to a couple of different reasons. One is that the secretarial fee went up due to the, I guess, the requirements of Munis. Water bill is increasing. We got some several projects coming up concerning the air conditioning. Golf cart batteries are very expensive. We had those for close to 10 years. And basically, we need to keep the golf course in good shape. As some of you may know, my saying from last year still stands. I want the course to look like Augusta. And it's getting there. It's getting there. We get compliments all the time about the new tree plantings we have, thanks to Jeremy Grant. And it's kind of the jewel of the north side of the post road. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, thank you. And like the harbor, we're very lucky to have orchards in our community. Certainly an asset for everyone in town and our neighboring communities. So thank you for your efforts over the years and keeping it in great shape. Any questions from the board? Comments? All right. Dan, thank you. And for all your work. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Open space, page 34. Right, Jeremy, how are you?
Hi, doing well. Good to see everybody this evening. My budget's pretty easy. There are no line items with it, but just to give you kind of a quick update from last year, one of the big things that we were focusing on was getting Milford recertified in Connecticut's Sustainable CT, which we did this past fall. Milford is a certified silver community and did complete over 48 different actions across all 13 different categories. Coming up this year pretty soon, a little plug, our Earth Day celebrations coming together. It'll be a celebration on Saturday, May 3rd on the Milford Green. We have our tree giveaway that'll be announced within the next couple months to take in. This year will be over 2,500 trees that we've had planted throughout the city and in our communities. So a lot of just great fun things that we have going on, along with assessments of our 3,200 acres of open space to really make sure that we're maintaining it for generations to come and dealing with the biological and abiotic issues that occur within them. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any questions for the open space director, manager? My only question, I know we're a fairly mature community, but do you see any opportunities to acquire any more significant open space in town?
So significant, probably not. But we did actually just go through the Planning and Zoning and Board of Alders just approved a small parcel that added to an existing 12-acre parcel. So we're trying to add small pieces when we can, but I mean, Milford's pretty well built, so I don't think we're going to be able to take and acquire any significant pieces. But we're always looking for parcels that we'll add to our existing or add natural pathways for, for our animals and plants.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you for your time. Have a good evening. If there's nothing further.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Page 63, Public Works.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Saley. How are you?
Good evening. I did have one question for the chairman and the committee. How come we're always last? I'm trying to figure this out. We're the last people standing. We're the most dedicated department in the city, if I can say.
Well,
whose road didn't I plow? Is it yours, Brian? That's what I want to know. Over there on Maple
I don't
Street.
think my Maple Street's almost a dirt road at this point. I'm not even sure you could plow it anymore.
Now I know why I'm last then.
They saved the best for last.
They saved
That's
the
what
butt.
it is.
I know everybody's a little serious today. I noticed that. So as you can see in our budget, it's fairly flat. We have contractual increases that came through, and I will speak similar to what Chief Mello spoke about. We gave fairly significant wage increases on the last contract, and you'll see that in across the board. We are struggling at times to get qualified candidates to apply. It's a very competitive market right now, and I'll give you an example. We interviewed a candidate for an electrician for wastewater last week, and we thought we offered him a competitive wage. And he also interviewed in New Haven. They offered him a lesser wage. And then when they found out that he was coming with us, they increased his wage, and we lost the candidate. And it is a challenge. We have to, when I say we, Public Works in the city in general, we have to look at efficiencies and try to look at how we can be more efficient across the board and try to offer the most competitive wages we can. And we are trying to do that within the city right now. So that's the good news, but there are times when we seem to lose out on good candidates. The things that will stick out with you, like the technology we're looking to do, and I'm jumping all over the place, but solid waste, we're getting a tracking system put in place in the next 2 months. We'll actually track the most efficient way to pick up trash. We're looking to do the same for snow plowing after we do the trash. So that was in the budget for this year. The other things that are noticed, garage parts, and I've spoken to, our biggest cost driver in that is sanitation. We have older trucks that require a lot more maintenance, and we're looking to, you'll see it in the bonding. We're bonding, I believe, for 4 trucks this year. It was something that, is desperately needed, and there is a decent amount of lead time on these trucks. So that's one of the issues with parts. Solid waste, again, we had a contractual obligation. It was last year it was 72 and change. Now it's 85 and 25 for our tipping fee in Bridgeport. And also solid waste, wastewater, the sludge disposal has gone up. So again, contractual issues. And any questions this group would have, I'm more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Saley. We have 3 or 4 or 5 to probably 6 departments with Public Works that Mr. Saley handles. So I'm gonna I'll go through the pages or the departments, but if anyone wants to backtrack or start anywhere else, just the floor is open, so go right ahead. But start with Public Works on page 63. If anybody has any questions on Public Works, and then also Highway and Parks on page 65.
Mr. Saley, just a quick question. How are you tracking? I know this winter's been a little busier than usual. How are you looking for snow removal and overtime relative to any kind of road treatments?
Yes, so we use town aid to pay for some of the contractors we bring in and also to purchase salt. And then we're using our overtime, which has been hit fairly hard because these storms have come on weekends, which predominantly is time and a half and double time, as opposed to during the week where at least you get half the shift on a regular shift. But we're tracking, the last storm was somewhere in the ballpark with salt and everything. Not this past storm, but the storm before that was close to $50,000 by the time we're all said and done. So it's not inexpensive to say the least. So it's a challenge, but we're working on it. And we're hoping that we'll be in a good spot at the end of the year. Hopefully, this is, February is almost over. In March, I don't want to jinx us, but hopefully we'll get lucky. We got very lucky for tomorrow because that storm was tracking. It was a 12 to 18-inch storm originally.
Keep it in
Chris,
the mountains.
I saw something on the news this morning. There was a municipality that had to close their schools because they didn't have enough sand or road treatment somewhere north Killingly area or something. Any issues with obtaining products for road salt or whatever?
It's interesting you say that. We've gotten away from the sand salt mix and just use salt exclusively. And this year it is a tight time. We have rotated our stock out. We had salt that was significantly older than it should have been, so we ran a little tight with salt, but we have enough at the present time, and we're waiting for about 1,000 tons to come in, but not exclusive to us. Most towns are struggling right now. They didn't anticipate back-to-back storms. The drivers have done a very good job, and we've been fairly lucky with weather. I mean, it was cold for a few days, but that last storm that we had, cold weather, but then it rained almost the rest of the day. So we were very lucky with salt usage on that storm. So we've been fortunate, but it is a challenge right now. There's no two ways about it. They have enough salt in New Haven. They can't disperse it or get it distributed quick enough. That's my understanding. We've been fortunate. We did borrow a little salt from Orange recently. They were good neighbors, municipal help, as I would call it. And so we're fine. We'll make it work.
Thank you.
How long does salt last if you don't use it?
That's a great question. So at the end of the salt shed, it was almost 10 years old. That's why we ran through it. We wanted to rotate it up. We should have rotated it. Hindsight's 2020. When they originally built this shed, they probably should have had openings on each end so you could fill it, as opposed to rehandling it 100 times. But like I said, hindsight's 2020. The good news is we've gotten away from the salt sand mix, because it used to be a shed with salt and sand and one with just our regular salt that we mixed. So now we're getting rid of that. So we'll have two separate sheds to work off of.
Gotcha.
Okay, highway parks and building maintenance, page 69.
I will highlight electricity is a wild card in this budget, as we all saw on our home bills with the beneficial charge that they put on that no one saw coming. So it will be very interesting. It's one of the things that we're looking at is trying to be more energy sufficient and efficient. And there's some programs out there that we want to try to access in the next year or so in regards to energy usage in the city. So.
Hi, I'm taking it you're doing the same thing with the heating fuel?
Yes, it's a pretty volatile item, switches all over the place. And the other part is, Ray, we've had a lot more usage than we like. The good news is the buildings are used a lot more. From Parsons, we used to have a set point, we'd set them down. Really, most buildings are used all the time, from Egan Center, the library, the Taylor building, the Fowler building. We have, I believe, 14 buildings that we directly use. Also, we have a number of bathrooms now that are year-round, from Howard Court to Walnut Beach, that are year-round, heated and open for people to use as they're walking. So there's definitely more. And also over at Eisenhower, the bathroom at the splash pad is open year-round. So if people are going for a walk, they can use a public bathroom, and we clean those on a regular basis.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saley. Engineering and general garage, page 72 and page 74.
Yes, again, the parts part is a little concerning right now. Equipment, supplies, and upkeep. It's our biggest account, and we're going to struggle this year with that, just because we're down 2 mechanics. Very hard to fill those 2 mechanics, even to the pay scale we're putting on the budget. So some of the work has gone out, and also, like I explained, the trash trucks, sanitation trucks, which are truthfully past their useful life, are being a challenge to keep them on the road.
Thank you. Okay, well, my favorite department, solid waste. It's
Why is it your favorite department, Brian? I'm curious.
well, because I love to see the tipping fees go up every year, right? They seem pretty stable this year. They're not a big increase like we had last year.
No, they went up from 72 to 85, almost $13. The good news is we seem to be tracking pretty consistent. We're not going up with when we're collecting curbside. We don't seem to see an increase in tonnage. So that's the good news there.
So that increase, so we're only projecting roughly $100,000 increase in disposal fees.
That's our goal. Yes.
Hey, Mr. Saley, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. I do
Did
enjoy.
I call you Lauren or
I prefer
get
Miss
confused?
Ranger.
I'm very informal. You guys are very formal here. I don't know.
Mr. Saley, here I am.
Yes. How your parents doing, by the way?
Oh, they're, dandy in Florida, 80 degrees. So we don't want to talk about them.
Got it.
How's that? I enjoy the social media aspect. I think Rob is putting that out there for the citizens of Milford. How's our compost program doing?
I'm glad you brought that up. We're very disappointed in it, to be honest with you. We thought we'd have more resident buy-in, and Rob and I were speaking about it today about how to get people more involved. It's a monster difference in weight, not volume necessarily, but weight that comes in. And I'm just speaking from my own experience. And I work for the city, so I can go to the transfer station. So we're trying to figure out how to make it easier to get people to compost their food waste. And when I say their food waste, bones and meat and everything can go in this. And it actually goes to a plant and they produce energy from it. So in Europe, they have these centralized locations where you can dump like glass, cardboard, food waste. And it's something we have to think about because the way we collect trash needs to change. And it's something we have to look at. And also just having people follow the basic guidelines, which is like recycling. A lot of people truthfully put trash in the recycling, which costs us a ton of money. Right now, I think our recycling tip fee is $74. It went up about $5 or $6 this quarter. So it's definitely challenging educating people and getting people to understand the importance. We as a society are very spoiled. We're used to just throwing out in the trash and it goes away. And we really need to follow Europe's standard, which is source separating, which means at location or central locations where people separate and get the good stuff that we can reuse and the bad stuff that we can repurpose and compost. And then the stuff that has to be burnt can be burnt.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll start to do better.
We have to get it started in the school systems. That's where it really is going to make a profound difference because the kids bring it home. They talk to their parents. The young kids are pretty astute with these items. And I'd love to bring you, whoever would like to go up to one of these processing plants. It's really impressive how they can change literally food junk into energy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Not the most pleasant thing to see, but it's pretty impressive.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Anything further for the Public Works Director on any of the departments we just covered? All right. Well, thank you for your time and all of your hard work and all of the city employees in that department. Certainly, they work hard, and I've said it before, but Milford has some great public amenities with the beaches and the parks, and people and the administration keeps everything in great shape. So thank you.
Yeah, we're very lucky that we live in Milford. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, we are. Okay, wastewater 101.
Lindsay, you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, Lindsay, how are you?
Good, thank you. Doing great.
So, you said you're welcome to make a presentation, or we could field questions.
I will touch on a few points. Chris had mentioned waste removal service. We have an annual increase with our contract. I just want to add that our contract is ending, I believe, in March. I just got a call today that we are going to see an increase in that, unfortunately. A little hard to anticipate, and we don't know what that's going to be yet. So I'll keep everyone updated when that happens. So that's not great news. Electricity, the public benefits charge, we use a lot of electricity and wastewater, a lot of pumps, a lot of compressors. And that extra charge in the bill is, you know, I think it's like 20-25% of our bill. It's a significant increase. So that's a big hit in electricity. And just two more things I'll touch on. So our laboratory expenses are going up. We have some new testing that Connecticut DEEP is requiring us to do. One of the tests is almost $7,000 alone. It's an annual test. So that's bumping up 14%, unfortunately. And then our chemical costs have gone up quite a bit. What we're seeing is with extremes in weather, we're getting, like this time last year, we were getting tons of rain. We had extremely high flows as that rainwater leaks into the sewer system. And that's a problem we are working on. But nonetheless, it still leaks in. And we have to use chemicals at the plants to, you know, keep the solids in the plant and keep everything running properly. And then on the opposite end, when we have droughts, we have odor control issues. So we use more chemicals to control the odors. And we're seeing large increases in cost on that as well. So that's the main highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Lindsay, quick question. Those state required tests, does the state provide any funding for those, or they just put it all on the municipalities?
They put it on the municipalities with no funding, unfortunately.
So you're required to do it and you're required to pay for it. Gotcha.
Yeah, they'll do some clean water funds for plant upgrades and big projects, but for the day-to-day stuff, they don't help out.
You know what that is, Scott? It's unfunded mandates, right?
Exactly.
Yep. Understood. I'd just like to ask.
Any other questions? Comments? So as you mentioned electricity, so the city, the municipality has to pay the public benefit charge as well? Is that what you were referring to? Yes.
Yes, we are paying it. I mean, in my opinion, it's a tax and we should be tax exempt, but it's on our bill and we're paying it.
Yeah, I was, when you said that, I was surprised because I just assumed the municipalities would not pay that, but.
Despite heavy lobbying to have that removed from all of our utility bills within the city, that still remains. It's one that hits everybody, including municipalities and nonprofits. So we're going to continue to advocate that gets removed, as well as for general rate decreases. But in the meantime, we are stuck paying the bill.
And you call it a tax, but really, I mean, that money, those funds are going to Eversource or UI or the utilities directly, right?
That's my understanding. Yeah, is that, you know, this is part of their repayment plan for carrying so many delinquent accounts during COVID, and that this was negotiated.
Municipalities are paying. There can't be that many delinquent accounts.
I think there's a bit more to it.
Yeah.
I haven't dived probably as deeply as I should on the issue, but I know it's a significant fee that we pay on every single one of the accounts that we have here in the city, and it's not just one UI, and it's not even three: one for the city, one for Board of Ed, and one for sewer. This is, you know, we have quite a number of UI accounts that each have this charge.
Well, thank you, Justin. That's enlightening.
No problem.
Thank you. Lindsay, anything further? Okay, moving on. Sewer Commission, Fund 12, I think that's in the back here. There's Sewer Commission. Back Sewer Commission. Oh, it's right there.
Hey, Brian, if I could jump in on that, the sewer commission has been managed by Beverly Hayes. She's retired last month, and I would like to say one of the best employees that the city's had in a long, long time, and we're going to miss her. She's working part-time to help us out to transition to a new employee that got hired within the city, and we're excited for the new employee also, so.
Well, that's, I think we would all agree, anybody who's worked with Beverly over the years knows how wonderful she is, and certainly will be missed.
She will.
Sewer Commission, page 98. Okay, Clean Water Fund, okay. Okay, nothing on page 98. Public Debt Service, which I had trouble finding, I know. Peter, you know what page the Public Debt Service is on? I couldn't find that.
Yes, it's on page 78.
Thank you.
And then when you're done with that, we'll jump to the school debt service on page 93.
Yeah, 93. I found that one. I wasn't able to find Public Debt Service, page 78. Okay, nothing there. Just quickly on Sewer Commission, going back, Peter, I do see the Clean Water Fund debt service. That was there. Was that when we did all the plants 20 years ago or so?
Yes, over a decade ago, that's when we did, yes, the upgrade to the 2 wastewater treatment plants. And we originally got low interest loans from the state Clean Water Fund. And then a few years ago, because of the low interest rates in the bond market, we did a refunding to pay off the remaining balance on those state loans, and we converted them to general obligation bonds at a lower rate. And that saved the city money, and the term of those bonds ends in 2028. So we're nearing the end of those. So eventually this will disappear from the sewer commission budget.
That's what I was getting at. I wasn't sure if we were on a 20-year term or 30-year term, but it's 2028. Okay.
2028. Yeah. The clean water loans were 20 years, I believe, but now these bonds have shortened the term a bit, and in the last payment is November of 2028.
Excellent. Thank you. School debt service, page 93. Employee benefits, non-teaching, page 93.
Yeah, just a quick question. Seems like generally all of them were going down except for the bond interest on the schools. It's going up. Just wondering why.
Yeah. Well, the reason for the decrease primarily is because we did have a refunding in November of 2024. At the same time we did our annual bond sale, and that refunding saved the city overall about $1.7 million. And in fiscal year 26, we were able to shave off or save a little over $900,000. So that's why the budget went down. The bond interest for schools went up because of the active school projects that are on the horizon. We always have to include a projection for what will be done over the upcoming fiscal year in this new year, and we won't have the bonds for those issued until the new year. And so we have to do an estimate on the interest, assuming that the schools will continue with these new projects.
So Peter, are those projects that were approved and bonded for, or approved, let's say, last year, but just due to phases and where they are in those projects, we may not have actually issued the bonds until this upcoming fiscal year?
Correct. And another factor too is that a lot of the biggest portion of that estimate is there's a principal and interest that's due every November on the bonds, but in May it's an interest only payment. And by the time we do this budget, like, we don't know exactly what that May of 2026 interest payment only will be. So we have to just estimate, looking at what the active projects are, and come up with our best estimate, because the bond sale will be in November of 2025, and that will determine the interest payment in May, the final one. And so because there's that question mark, if you will, until the November 2025 bond sale, I have to do an estimate. So that's why that went up.
Gotcha. I must say that over the past 10 years, you guys have done an amazing job managing the debt.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think just to that point, with all the refundings that have been done since 2010, I'll go back that far, we've saved a total of about 10.3 million for the city, grand total savings. So it's definitely been a lot of work for a number of people on the team with this, and it's something that we're always looking out for each year. So when we can do it, we definitely try to implement it. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's we've been lucky, and lucky may not be the right word, but fortunate to have you, Peter, and your staff on top of it, and the administration's taking advantage of those opportunities. So we appreciate it. Okay, education employee benefits page. Well, education employee benefits, non-teaching. I'm not sure what page that is on. I've got employee benefits.
I think it's 93.
93.
Oh, are they both 93? Because we've got employee benefit. Oh, yes, employee benefits. I'm confused.
It's
Employee benefits,
it's under the
employee
title FICA, non-teacher.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The heading is education employee benefits. The subheading is the line item that tells you it's non-teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's page 93, and then employee benefits general, page 84. Thank you. It's been a long day. Any comments on those two questions? Employee benefits, page 84, or employee benefits non-teaching, page 93?
Only question on page 84, under pension, 17,300,000. It's a big uptick. Is that just due to assumed growth rates, or is there any explanation as to why there's a bump like that in the pension for police, fire, general?
Yes, part of it is the decrease in the assumed rate of return, and we've brought that down, from 7.5, and it's almost reaching the end point of our goal of bringing it to 7.0. So the 7.0 will be done for the 7/1/24 valuation, which is in progress. So the actuaries made this estimate for the annual contribution of 17.3 million. Obviously, it's based on the results of the 7/1/24 valuation. And again, it's also part of it too are the number of retirees. I know that the market value also fluctuates, so that's part of it too. And it was no surprise, at least to me, that it went up this year.
Yeah, well, I remember over the last few years, right, Peter, going from the 7.5 down to 7. It's been a phase in, if you will, of additional
yeah, we did a
costs.
5-year phase in. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what's the funding level at right now? Do you know offhand? Just curious.
It's about 82%. 82% funded.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter.
You're welcome.
Peter, I just have a question. What was the pension? What was the valuation number? Was it was above 7.5 at one point, wasn't it? Over 8?
Correct. Yeah. Years ago, when the market was much high, the stock market and the financials were higher, yeah, it was a little over 8%. And it stayed that way for a while. But as the market had various downturns, we had to eventually bring it down. And now it will be approaching 7.0% as an assumed rate of return for this upcoming valuation.
And have we always met the ARC on the municipality side during that time?
During that time, going further back, there was no ARC. There was one point when the fund was so robust, if you will, because of, and part of that was the highest stock market. The ARC, it used to be called ARC, annual required contribution, was 0. And so this line item was either 0 or minimal in the budget. But then as the market turned and other factors, of course, an annual required contribution was added and gradually increased over the years. And there was a period of time for several years where we didn't fund it at 100%, but in the past recent 4 years, more or less, we have been making 100% of the required contribution. So we're back to doing that. We're committed to doing it, and so that is why we put in the 17.3 million, the 100% of the ADIC.
Thank you.
Are the Board of Finance members eligible for pensions?
I don't think so, unfortunately.
Yes, but not from the town.
Brian, I was just looking for the T&E line item here in the finance budget, and I don't see anything for the board members for anything.
No, nothing there. I think we'd learn. All right. Well, yeah, it's a necessary obligation that we need to meet. So, but as noted, we've got a number of wonderful employees. We're lucky overall. So.
Yeah, that's a prudent approach because you see a lot of municipalities don't meet that obligation. It becomes a problem later on. So to adjust the assumed return to a more reasonable level and to fund it at this level it takes a lot of foresight. So that's smart.
Well, we don't want to be in a position where we have to bond our pension obligations. That's the last.
No.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I was driving.
Put us into a West Haven situation. Years ago, I was the representative from the police department on the pension board. And one of the things that the municipality did back then I think it was under Jimmy Riccitelli. The COLAs for police and fire were coming out of the general fund every year, to the tune of about $2 or $3 million, I think it was back then, 2.5 million. And they negotiated with both unions and moved that COLA over into the pension fund. And it reduced the funding level of the pension overall, but they started making that back because they were making their full contributions. Like you said, they used to call it the ARC. And I haven't been following it as closely, but I hope that they do continue to fully fund the contributions, because we were in the, I think, 1 percentile at one point for pension funds throughout the state. We're in the top tier. It was managed very well, and that was always I think a star on Milford's record there. So
absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I think and we're still doing our post-employment benefits as well, I see, so that's another obligation. Anything further from the members?
No.
Okay, moving on to insurance and bonds, page 85. Claims and refunds, page 85.
Quick question.
Yes.
Just compared to actual, the 900,000 seems really high. I'm just wondering why.
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, for the heart and hypertension claims.
Yes, that's because there's approximately there's a couple of existing settlements that have not been that are still in negotiations that have not been finalized yet. But as I receive more information from the risk manager and city attorney's office, and as we discuss the claims, it's prudent to be able to budget for them in the applicable budget year when we anticipate a possible settlement. And so that's why the actual is lower, because the settlements have not been reached yet for these particular cases.
Is it were the same settlements pending last year? Because like last year's budget was 915.
Yeah, I believe at least one of them, maybe another, and we're still pending. But as we learn of a potential settlement on the horizon, then it becomes necessary to increase the budget accordingly. And that's what we did. I think in prior years, we didn't know what the exact number would be. We had a small estimate built in, but then as we learned more and anticipated the city providing more information, then we had to increase the budget like we did in 2024, and we're doing it again in 25 because the settlements have not been reached.
When, do you foresee the settlements occurring so that this eventually gets reduced, off of 900,000, even to 200,000?
Yes, I do foresee that eventually, we will reach a conclusion and then be able to reduce this number.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Peter, just on page 85, a technical thing. I think on the historical data, I think there's a typo for the 2024, 2025 years.
Okay.
If you see it, it's the same. The whole top line reads 2020.
Oh, right. Yep. I'll fix that typo. Thank you.
Yeah, it's on for both claims and refunds.
For both sides. Yep. Thank you for pointing that out. We'll fix it.
And then, I don't know if this is for the mayor or you, but obviously we read a lot in the papers about cost of insurance. Our cost of gone up a little bit. Is this more of a general market condition, or is there anything specific to the city that's driving these rates?
No, for the most part, it's a general market increase, where Kerma, we're anticipating what the annual increase would be. And part of it in here too is the flood insurance. The flood insurance goes up each year, and we've seen some increases in that market as well.
All right, thank you. Anything further on those two items on page 85? Now we'll move to page 86. And Peter, just what units are happening? As the police mentioned, or the chief mentioned, police are negotiating this year, or their agreements up. Are there any other unions up this year?
Yes, we have the police as mentioned. We have the Milford Employee Association, Milford City Hall Employee Association expired also in 2024. The nurses are also expired in negotiation. And let's see. We have a number of contracts that expired in 25. The non-reps. I believe
We've got quite a few coming in.
Yeah, I look at non-reps. It's the non-reps, the police chief and deputy police chief, that they mirror the police contract, so they're expiring in 25. And then it looks like the dispatchers, the police and fire dispatchers expire in 25 as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further on benefit salary reserve, page 86? Now we're getting there. Page 93. Education audit and education health insurance contribution on page 894.
Relatively small increase. Certainly a decrease from the prior year. Any reason for the lesser than average increase? Did we last year, didn't we use some funds to effectively buy down the rate? Did we do the same thing this year? Use the surplus?
Yeah, to some extent we did a similar thing this year. So it's like a balance between, you want to put in an adequate amount into the health insurance fund. You don't want to shortchange it, but you don't want to put in too much either. So we just try to find the appropriate amount to make sure we have enough funding in the health insurance fund for the upcoming fiscal year.
Thank you.
Got it.
Anything further from the board on education health? All right, well, I appreciate everyone's input tonight, efforts. We have our regular meeting on Monday, the 24th at 5:30, and as you know, I haven't seen the agenda yet, but I think it went out today. There will be some bonding ordinances on the agenda, as typical for February. So Jeff, you'll get to spend a lot of money on Monday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Bring your checkbook.
Excellent.
I feel like we spent a lot of money today.
Yeah, well, not yet. Monday we'll actually have to vote to spend it.
True.
But luckily, there's not too much on the budget after the regular meeting. And then we'll have another busy night on the 26th. So
Both are
Chair,
Zoom, correct? Both are Zoom, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we recess until Monday, February 24th, where we'll reconvene at 5:30 PM via Zoom.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Jeff. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you, everyone. We're almost there. Have a good weekend. See you Monday.
Thank you.
You too.
See you on
Good
Monday.
night.
Thank
See
you.
you on Monday.
Everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Take care.